Great Scott. Great Scott. Great Scott.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Great Scott. I'm Scotty V. Thanks for watching. So, David Goyer now is rumored to be thinking about producing a Krypton television series, which would, I can only assume, chronicle the history of Krypton, obviously long before Kal-El was born, because right around the time he was born, Krypton goes kablooey. Now, I would love to see a series about Krypton. I've been saying for years that we need more history of Krypton on film, more history on TV. There was a lot of history shown on Smallville, I guess, kind of their own thing. Every show, every movie, every take by every creator is going to be a little bit different. It's been different many, many times in the comics. It's been written by many different comic writers in many different ways. You know, you can see Krypton on the old Kirk Alyn serial from way back in the day, where they're very melodramatic and they speak in a very concise, precise, over-accentuated way. But it was cool to see different versions of kind of at a council table yelling at each other about Jor-El's theories, which is generally similar in every rendition that you see. We've seen it on the Superman animated series, which was cool. It made Jor-El kind of a man of action. He rode around on that skiff and he fought with people who were trying to stop him from getting to Brainiac, who in that version was from Krypton and made on Krypton. And I don't know that it has enough of an audience that would be interested, but if you make it a grand sci-fi epic, a grand space opera where there's emotions and characters and depth and story and great innovations and mystery and cool effects and things for what you can do for television, I think you can make a great story here. I read Last Days of Krypton by Michael J. Anderson, which I'm sure many of you also have, and I really love the story. I love the richness of the background. I love the richness of the world. I love the idea that it's a fully realized, living world with characters and creatures and animals and robots and technology and buildings and everything else that we can see on a TV series in a much grander way than we have before. Now, on TV, this would be something maybe never done for a superhero series, because they pretty much would have to create every setting from scratch. You know, you can't have them in a room like this talking. I think it's a huge undertaking. And I think if you can get the right people interested, it's very possible that Goyer could bring this to the screen in a great and grand way. I really liked Man of Steel. I liked the writing. Were there some miscues, just like in any film? I'm sure that there were. Were there some things that weren't present in the film that fans would have liked to see? Absolutely, because I've heard many talk about it. This is one take, Man of Steel. The Donner films were another take. The Lester films were another. The way they went on from there, very changed, very different from what Donner had initially envisioned. And Superman Returns, even though it was connected to those Donner films and it was kind of supposed to be the same continuity, still its own different thing. Man of Steel, very different from that. The animated series, very different. And every time we see it, it's going to be a little bit changed. It changes in the comics all the time. So they have multiverses, then sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's one Earth, sometimes there's 52 Earths. They don't usually start over at 0 when they do these reboots, but they reboot the comics almost every 10 years or so in one way or another, where some things change, some of the characters' history change. But I think that there's a rich, plethora of historical things that happen in a fictional story, but on Krypton that we could see. They could create their own. They could pick a totally different time period where it's characters we haven't heard of, but then they could sprinkle in some of the other mythological characters, some of the things that have happened, the explosion of part of the moon due to a scientist who eventually gets ostracized and becomes a villain. Why does Zod become a villain? Why does he go over to the dark side? Why are they friends at first and then they become enemies? How do Jor-El and Lara fall in love? Is it a love-type society? You know, there have been representations of Krypton where they've kind of bred out emotions somehow, a little like Vulcans, where they're very scientific and they're very logical and they breed because it's necessary, and they pair with the person that's going to be the most able to, continue the race with them in the best possible way. It's a little like that in Man of Steel, where they create babies out of the best DNA, and you're not supposed to have your own child in secret and then have him sent off to another universe when the world is coming to an end. Hence why Jor-El eventually ends up on the wrong side of the law and of the council, because he does his own thing and he decides that what's best for Krypton and his family is to do what he does. I would like to see how a lot of that came about, and I'd like to see some new characters, and I'd like to see some characters from the comics that have never been on film or on animation or on television, because there's so much that can be done. So I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that you are. I don't know if it can succeed, but I'm a little more optimistic, because it seems like a lot of these write-ups are including Gotham as one of the reasons why people might even be thinking about this idea, because Gotham's being successful. And Gotham had 8 million viewers on its first night. It went down to 6, and I'm sure it's gone down a little more since then before it steadies out. But if 4 or 5 million is the average viewership now that's considered good, in this day and age where you can consume so much television in so many different ways and so much entertainment in so many different places at so many different times, ratings can't matter as much. So I'm hopefully able to revise my position on the Supergirl idea just based on the ratings that I thought for Gotham that were bad. Because maybe if they're happy with that these days, shows like Krypton and Supergirl and Flash and Gotham really do have a chance to go the long haul, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. I hope it comes to fruition. Right now it's a rumor. Although the claim to fame for the website, I guess, that originally spouted off about this was that they were the ones to first announce there was a Supergirl series being talked about. They've talked about an X-Men series that I don't even know about that supposedly is happening. And they were the first ones to get those scoops, so they're saying we now have another. I hope they're right, and I hope it happens, and I hope Goyer gets some great writers and writes himself, and I hope it's a great series. You know, I think it'll need a lot of grand scope, because it's going to take place on a wholly different world. So all of the settings are going to be needed to be created from scratch, and CGI, and they're going to need effects and stuff. It could be really cool if done well, and if it takes off. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it happens. Thanks everybody for watching, and remember, always look up in the sky.